They make our life exciting. They beautify our lives. The Holy Quran says about our children that our children are the adornment of our life. The Quran says, Al-mal wal-banun zinatul hayat dunya. That money and children, they are the zinat. Zinat means the adornment, the beauty of dunya. Meaning without our children, life wouldn't be so exciting. Life would be mundane. So if you think life is exciting and you're enjoying it, wait until, if you haven't already, become a father. The day you become a father, the day you become a mother, and you have a child, a young son or daughter that looks up to you as a role model and tells you, my dear father, my dear mother, mom, dad, this will truly make your day. It'll make your life, not just your day. This is one of the most beautiful pleasures of the dunya, is having children. And thus the Quran says, Al-mal wal-banun zinatul hayatid dunya. But at the same time that it is one of the greatest gifts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us, the Quran also tells us that this gift, like all the ni'am of Allah, like all the favors of Allah, this gift comes with responsibility. If you do not take care of this child, if you do not bring this child in the right way, then this child will be your worst nightmare. It will be a curse against you. Can we raise the volume just a little, please, brother? Brother, just raise the volume a little more, please. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. So similar to every ni'mah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in this life, it comes with responsibility. And Allah tests us even with our children. And that's why the Quran says about our children, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةً. Allah says that your children at the same time they are zina, they beautify life. Likewise they are fitna. And fitna in the Arabic language means test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you money, Allah gives you children, but He tries you through your children. That means these children that we have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us with them. And this reminds me of a story that happened with Amir al-Mu'mineen, how he saw one day someone saying, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-fitna. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from fitna, meaning I don't want fitna. Please don't try me in my life. I don't want challenges. I don't want tests. So Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam told him, Araka tata'awwadhu min waldik. He says that by saying this dua, that means you don't want children. Because the Quran says even your own children are fitna. Money is fitna. So if you don't want fitna, that means you don't want children, you don't want money, you don't want anything. So the idea that Amir al-Mu'mineen was trying to teach him was this, that our children come with a responsibility. When Allah gives you kids, they are an amana. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects you to take care of this amana and raise your children in the right way. If you raise your children in the Islamic way, they grow up to be God-fearing, pious individuals. They have iman. You teach them the iman. You feed them the iman at that young age. Then this is what will give you the beauty of the dunya and the akhirah. But if not, if I fail in this task and I don't teach them faith, I don't teach them religion starting at a young age, then they will make my dunya and my akhirah a nightmare. And that's why the ahadith tell us that if you raise a good child, you teach them Islam, you teach them religion, you plant iman in them, you, the father, the mother, you're the most person that will benefit. So even if you look at it selfishly, the best thing for you to do is raise your children in an Islamic environment, in an environment where they grow up to be religious children. They love Islam, they love religion. You are the person that will benefit the most in the dunya and in the akhirah. How? Look at the dunya. Look at many parents. One of their greatest fears when it comes to raising their children is one of two. Number one fear that I see many parents have now, especially here in the West, they fear that their children won't grow up to respect them. They fear the rebellion of their children, especially when they start to enter those teenage years. They begin to rebel against their parents. They don't listen anymore. They disrespect their parents. And unfortunately, you find this very common in the Western society. There isn't too much emphasis on the respect of the parents. So they always have this fear that, will my child respect me? Will my child always stay with me and love me and respect me in the same way that I did for my father? Will it be the same or not? Because we see the difference in the culture from the Muslim countries, from how the parents were raised versus how the children are raised. They don't care too much about the parents, and there isn't that much respect shown from the children to the parents. The best way, my dear brothers and sisters, the best way for you to ensure that your children will always respect you, if you raise them to be righteous individuals. Because there is no religion that stresses the importance of parents like Islam. Read the verses of the Quran. Read the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt. Look at how much they emphasize on respecting the father and the mother. The Quran says, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Don't even tell them off. And off is the least sign of dissatisfaction. When you don't like something your father tells you, your mother tells you, the least thing you can do to object is say off. Off, just like that. No, you're not happy. The Quran says even that is a sin. Even that is haram. You have absolutely no right to disrespect your father, your mother, even if it's something as little as off. The hadith of the Prophet says, Al-Jannatu tahta aqdam al-ummahat. That heaven is beneath the feet of the mother. Meaning you can never enter heaven if your parents, if your mother and father, especially your mother, are not happy with you. So always try to please your mother. Always try to please your father. And like I said, you will not find this except in Islam. And I remember a story, I remember a video that I saw on YouTube a while back of an Australian convert. He was an atheist, I think, and then he became a Muslim. Now his parents, he says in a lecture that he gave, he says that my parents were against Islam. They didn't want me to become Muslim. But what they noticed, that when I became a Muslim, I started to respect them more. Because he said when I became a Muslim, I saw that, you know what? Parents are very important. You always have to love them, respect them, no matter what. The Quran says, even if they are mushrik, they worship idols, then you still have to love them and respect them. وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. So he says, I start to care for them even more. He says that my parents noticed. They told me, look, we don't like this religion, but we notice it's made you a better person. You're starting to respect us parents more. And this is the entire idea of Islam. That many stories you have throughout history, individuals, when they embraced Islam, even though their parents were not Muslim, but they started to respect their parents even more than before. So Islam stresses on the importance of your parents. You want to please Allah? First, please your mother, please your father. If your parents are not happy with you, then forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being happy with you. I remember there was a video that had gone viral, a wedding of a young guy. And his father was a scholar. And in the wedding, there was a poet who was reciting some lines of poetry about Ahlul Bayt in front of the groom. And he said in those lines of poetry, and I was at that wedding, I had attended, and he said lines of poetry telling the son, always love your father, always respect him. Now that you're getting married, don't neglect him. And he said that through nice words of poetry. So the son, while he heard those words, he looked at his father, he took his father's hand, and he kissed it. He was a young guy, and he kissed his father's hand. I remember that this video, many people had seen it. There was one particular person who told me, I saw this video. He's a person that I met in the US, someone maybe about 50 years old. He told me, Maulana, when I saw this video, I started to cry. I told him, why? He said, when I saw this young man in this year, in this age, he takes the hand of his father and he kisses it. I said, subhanallah. How beautiful is that? We don't have that in our communities anymore. Because once upon a time, this used to be the norm, that any time the father used to come home from work, the children would line up and they would kiss the forehead of the father. They would kiss the hand. They would all stand up and show utmost respect to the father and likewise to the mother. This is back then. Now the father comes, the son is on the couch like a potato playing video games. The father says salam. He says, yeah, salam. Don't bother me, I'm playing video games now. You see how times have changed? Where's that respect of the children towards the father, towards the mother? So he told me, subhanAllah, and this year, 2019, I still see some people that they take their father's hand and they kiss it. This broke my heart. That, you know what? Why shouldn't we have more of these individuals? This, my dear brothers and sisters, does not come unless you tie them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Islam teaches you, the more you love your parents, the more you show them respect, the closer you'll be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why it's in your better interest. It's in your interest to raise your children the right way, the Islamic way. Because that will also come back to you. So that's one of their greatest fears, the rebellion of their children, especially in this day and age. Number two, one of their fears is also this. They fear their children, they may go into drugs. They may have, they may engage in immoral behavior, correct? They may engage in crimes. And how many stories I have heard, parents, they come and they complain about what their kids are doing in school and elsewhere in the society. Now, if I have this fear, likewise, one of the best ways to ensure that my child will not go into these immoral behavior, will not go into crimes, will not go into drugs, is to raise them as a righteous individual. Because if I tie my son and daughter to Allah, I will know that their taqwa, their piety is what will keep them on the right track. There are certain individuals, they have to always be on the back of their children. What are they doing? Did they pray? Did they not pray? Are they doing what's right? Now obviously this individual did not raise his child to have taqwa. Because if he planted taqwa the right way, he or she, while they were young, then you don't have to force them. You don't have to drag them. Their taqwa, their self-piety that's instilled inside them is what will guide them. So that's why the fears of parents that we have, they can all be alleviated through what? Through raising our children the right way. Tying them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to Ahlul Bayt. The more they love Ahlul Bayt, the more they will love and respect you. So this is in the dunya. Raising our children, Islamic environment, is for my own good. Because Islam will ensure that they respect you and they stay away from trouble. That's in the dunya. Likewise in the akhirah. In the akhirah, it's in your best interest that you raise your children, brothers and sisters, in the right way. Now, some of you have children, others inshallah, you'll get married and you'll have children. So this is why it's very important. You see, as for the akhirah, many of us, we try to prepare for the future, right? We know that we will retire one day, and that's why we want to have investments. We invest for the future. So that when I retire, I have a source of income where I can sleep at home, don't do anything, and I can have a source of income that allows me to live a comfortable life. That's why we want pensions from our work. Sometimes we look for pensions from the government. It's called Social Security. In other countries, it has different names, correct? That they give the allowance that help to the senior citizens. Or for example, I may buy an apartment so that I can rent it out when I'm old. I can live on the income that it generates, so on and so forth. Any type of investment, this is what many of us look for, that when I grow older, I have a stable source of income, so I don't have to work anymore. When I raise my children, brothers and sisters, in the Islamic way, this is the best investment for you. How? Because you see, as we said, and I mentioned this I think a few nights ago, that as long as you're alive, you can accumulate good deeds. Once you die, that's it, right? Once you die, you can't do any more good deeds. It stops. But there is a hadith that tells us there is an exception to this. There is an exception where you could be dead in your grave and still getting thawab, still getting ajr, still getting reward. Isn't that the best investment? That you do something when you're alive and that thing will benefit you even after you die. It's a famous hadith from the Prophet. The Prophet said in this hadith, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمْ انْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. When the human being dies, that's it. You can't accumulate any more good deeds. That's it. If you didn't do enough good deeds for your next life, too bad. He says, but there's only 3 exceptions where you could be dead and still benefiting. Still getting new ajr, new rewards. How? He said 3 ways. Number 1, he says, صَدَقَةٌ جَارِيَةٌ. A sadaqah that is jariyah, it's continuous. For example, I build an orphanage, correct? I die, the orphanage will stay for 200 years. I will benefit for as long as the orphanage is open. I help to donate to a masjid, to a Husayniyah, to Imam Bargah. Any charitable organization, a hospital. I may die, but as long as this institution, this charitable institution is running, I will benefit in my grave. Anytime someone comes in that masjid and prays 2 rak'ahs, even though I died 20 years ago, I will still benefit now. What's more? What's more beautiful than that? That's the best investment. Do something in your life so that even after you die, you can still benefit. Any sadaqah, any charity that stays for a long time, this is the best sadaqah you should invest. Every single one of us should make this a plan in our life. That I have at least one sadaqah jariyah. Sometimes it's something as simple as a water fountain that remains for 20, 30 years. Anytime someone drinks water, then I get thawab for that. It could be, for example, a library, a website. Anything that continues and people will benefit from it, then I will continuously receive ajr from it. This is number one. Number two, the Prophet says, وَعِلْمٌ يُنْتَفَعْ بِهِ. Anytime I give knowledge, and that knowledge is there to stay. For example, I write a book. And this book helps people, it teaches people about Ahlul Bayt, about the Quran, anything that's beneficial to people. I die, the book remains. I get ajr for any person that benefits from that book. Imagine, we have scholars that wrote books 1,000 years ago, and for over 1,000 years, millions of people have benefited from those books. You know how much thawab the alim is getting? For 1,000 years he's getting more thawab, more thawab, more thawab. Because the more people benefit, the more I get thawab. Likewise a lecture. Let's say I have a lecture, my lecture that I'm giving now, they put it on the internet, on YouTube. Let's say I die, okay? But the lecture is still there. Anyone that listens to my lecture and benefits, I will get ajr, even though I have died. So this is number two, knowledge that people benefit from, even though I have died, but the knowledge is still there. And number three, the Prophet said, وَوَلَدٌ صَالِحٌ يَدْعُو لَهُ. If you have a good pious child, that child, you die, but as long as that child continues, you will receive ajr for that child in two ways. Number one, if you raise them the right way, of course. وَلَدٌ صَالِح, a pious child. The first way that you benefit from your child is, the hadith says, الدال على الخير كفاعله. Anytime you teach someone to do something good, anytime that person does that good, you receive ajr. For example, if I tell you, brother, tonight if you pray this prayer, then you will receive ajr. I teach you a certain salah, or I teach you any certain good act. Anytime you do that act, I will receive ajr, because I was the cause. So if this person that I taught him to pray Salatul Layl, prays Salatul Layl for 50 years, for 50 years I will receive ajr from his work, because I was the cause, correct? Now imagine you raise a child in a good way. Every time he does a good deed, you will receive ajr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the ajr for his good work. Why? Because you're the cause of his entire existence. You raised him in a good way. Anytime he does a good deed, you receive ajr. And there's a hadith about this. It's narrated by the Prophet. The Prophet says that Prophet Isa, one day he was walking beside a grave of someone that had died. And he noticed that this person, he was being punished in his grave. So maybe the Prophet Isa, he heard some cries or something. He knew that the person that was in this grave was being punished by Allah. So he left. He came back 1 year after. He came across the same grave. Now he noticed he's no longer being punished. He now is what? He's being blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's enjoying his akhirah, his barzakh. So Isa asked Allah, he told him, Ya Allah, last year this man was being punished, now he's not, he's being rewarded. Why? Allah tells him, according to this hadith, Allah tells him, because this man had done many bad deeds. But during this year, something new happened. His son, he turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had a son, his son became religious. He became pious, and he started to do some good acts. The hadith says, there was a road, people asked him to fix a road. He helped fixing a road for people, and he helped a yatim. There was an orphan young boy without a father or mother. He went and he helped that orphan. Because of the son, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave the sins of the father. So if you raise a good child and your child does good deeds, you will continuously benefit from your child, even though you have died in your grave. That's the first way you benefit. And the second way that you benefit is that if you raise a good child, we are taught that if your parents are alive, respect them, love them, show them kindness. If your parents are dead, what do? Make it a habit. Every day recite Surah Al-Fatiha for them. If my mother has died, my father has died, every day. Do not leave any day where you do not recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Yasin. At least once a week, read Surah Yasin for your parents. So you see, when I am taught to do this for my parents, they could be in their graves and benefiting. Every day new Fatiha, every day Al Yasin. It's recommended at least once a month. Go and visit. If you live in the same city, go and visit their graves and read some Surah Inna Anzalna, Surah Qul Huwallah, Al Yasin. Any dua, any ziyarah, anything that you can do. Give charity and gift it to your parents. Go to Hajj, mustahab, gift it to your parents. When you go to ziyarah next year of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, gift it to your parents if they are dead. For example, hold a majlis in the name of Imam Hussein and gift it to your parents. This is a habit of a believer. He never forgets his parents. So in this way, you benefit from your parents, you benefit from your children, because they will constantly do dua for you. They will constantly do good deeds and gift it to you. And that's why there's a hadith that says that one day a man came to Imam al-Sadiq and he told him that I never wanted children. I always hated children. I thought children are annoying. Until one day I changed my mind. He said, I was in Hajj, performing Hajj on the day of Arafah. He says, while I was standing before Allah on the plains of Arafat doing dua for myself, he said, I saw a young man beside me. The whole time he was saying, Ya Allah, my father, my father. My mother, my mother. The whole time, he never did dua for himself. All he did dua for his mother and father that were dead. When I looked at that, I said, SubhanAllah, the father and mother are dead in their graves, and this boy spent the entire day of Arafah doing dua for those parents. How lucky are those parents? So he said, after that, I asked Allah, give me children too. So even if you look at it selfishly, if you raise your children in the Islamic way, wallahi, you will benefit the most in the dunya and in the akhirah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But what we must realize, my friends, is that this task is not easy. Raising good children, pious children, righteous children that do dua for me, that fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is easier said than done. Yes, saying I'll raise good children, this is easy. But practically speaking, once you try it, it's not that easy. And especially here in the West. In the West, my friends, the most difficult task is to raise good children. Because you see, it's already a difficult process. But here in the West, you find that there are forces that are trying to stop you from raising good children. You have to swim against the currents here in the West. There's a huge wave that's trying to drag our kids the other way, and we have to pull them. Imagine how hard it is. It's already hard to raise children, but now imagine that all these forces that are trying to pull away our children. The tide here is against you, my friends. It's not easy to raise kids. Look at the immorality that has spread. Maybe in our countries when we grew up, yeah, the society would help you. But here the society does not help you, because we live in a liberal society. Is there anything called morality? No. Is there anything called shame? No. Is there anything called haya? No. If you let the society raise your children will be lost. So if you want to raise good children here in the West, you have to work overtime. It's a full-time job. I'm so surprised at some parents. They don't understand this. The father is working, the mother is working, the son and daughter are in school, and they rarely have any time to interact, and then they think they have good kids. When they tell them your son is in drugs, he says, why? What did I do wrong? What do you mean what did I do wrong? When did you even raise your son? When did you even raise your daughter? Did you even teach her Islam? Did you even teach him what's right and wrong? You let the society teach them. Now look where the society is going. Morality keeps changing, evolving, right? Every day something that was considered immoral becomes moral. This is what the society teaches us. Just 50 years ago here in the West, so many things were considered wrong. Now it's considered okay, correct? We know that. Same gender rights, right? Now this is something acceptable that society says this is right. If I let the society raise my kids, my son, my daughter will come and tell me, my dear father, what's wrong with same gender relationships? This is what the society, if there is no Islam, if I have not implanted religion inside him, what's to say this will never happen? How can I protect my children in this society? Wallahi, if I were to tell you the stories of what's happening in our communities, what kinds of problems our parents are going through, wallahi, you would be so surprised. But because the parents, they are in a different world, because the parents, they are so focused on their jobs, they don't know the challenges. That's the problem. They don't even know what their kids are doing behind their backs. They're happy, they think their daughter is good, their son is good, but their son and daughter, they have two faces. In front of the father and mother, they act one way, but in school, in front of friends, completely different. I remember when I used to go to school in the US, I was in high school, I used to go to the Majlis, Salat al-Jum'ah, I used to see a father. He was the most righteous individual. He was the first one there reading Quran, he listened to the lecture, MashaAllah, holy face. He would always pray. He was such a good person in the society. But come to the school and see what his son was doing. He was the wildest person in school. 3, 4 girlfriends that everybody knew. He was into drugs. He was even selling kids drugs. He was drinking, and he was probably 15 years old, drinking all the time, skipping class. And the father has no clue. Because there is no interaction. Because there is no involvement. When there is no involvement, no interaction, I let the society raise my kids. This is what happens. Once a brother told me that there was a travel agent that told me, you don't know what kids are doing now. He said, come to my travel agency, I'll show you. This is one of the Western countries. He says, I went. He says, there was a bus stop right in front of my travel agency. He said, just sit down and look. You'll see what has happened to our community. He says, I noticed the father came with his car, his young girl, maybe 14, 15 years old, goes to high school, wearing the full hijab. He drops her off. She's supposedly supposed to take the bus and go to school. He says, just look at her. After she was sure the father left, she went inside the bathroom of the bus stop. She came out a completely different girl. No hijab, she's wearing the shortest skirt you can see, almost half naked. And she has all this makeup. She does not go on the bus and goes to school, but rather a guy comes, pulls up, she gets in the car and leaves. And before school finishes, he drops her back, she goes, she wears her hijab, and she goes. Her dad picks her up. Her dad asks her, how was school today, my dear daughter? Alhamdulillah, it was beautiful. And the father has no clue. He's in a different world and his daughter is in a different world. This is Shia people. These are the dangers that we face, brothers and sisters. I remember a story that one scholar told me once. He said that there was a very pious man in the community and he was very happy because his son got admitted into medical school, but in a different area. So in a different city. So he said, I was so happy that he was going to study. And he told him, I'll give you any money you need. All the money that you need for your school, I'll give it to you. He says for 3 years, his father was so happy. He was telling everybody, my son's going to be a doctor. My son's going to be a doctor. He says after a couple of years, the son comes. He has an appointment. He says, Maulana, I have to admit something to you. And he starts crying. He says, all these 3 years, I never went to school. I would take my father's money, I would travel, go to a certain city, gamble, and I became addicted to drugs, and I never ever studied. And my father has no clue. My father is waiting for the day that I graduate. He says, I want you to tell my father. And the scholar told him, me? Never. I'm never going to tell your father. You want me to, kill your father? Your father's going to die. You know how happy he's been for all these years? He's telling everybody that people have even gotten annoyed by him. My son's going to be a doctor. My son's going to be a doctor. Imagine now he knows $50,000 he gave him. He helped him in his school, and all of that went into vain. It went into vain, and he was using it to gamble and drugs. The father had no clue. So this is the new challenge, my dear brothers and sisters. That our kids are living a completely different life, isolated from the parents, and we have no idea. We think we know, but we don't know. If I were to continue the stories of how certain children, how they got lost in these countries, and they had the best parents. I remember once I went to a certain place in Canada for a Majlis. I stayed at a person's house. Wallahi, the best person. Every night he used to pray Salat al-Layl. He had 2 sons. I saw the younger one, I never saw the older one. They told me that, we have a son named Fulan. Never showed up, never came to the Majlis. He never even came to say salam to me. So I asked someone, what's up with this guy's son? Why does he never show up? He says, oh, this guy's son, he's a Christian. He became a Christian because he had a bad friend that influenced him. And now the father and son are not talking. And on Sundays, I saw him one Sunday, he left and he went to church. And his father, every day he prays Salat al-Layl. So being a mu'min yourself means nothing now. You could be the best person and have the worst son. Because if you don't raise your son and daughters and you let the society raise them, this is what happens. I remember another incident where a very good man, every night in the Majlis, I used to see his son. He was a very good son. Came to the Majlis. I came a second year, his son wasn't there. I asked, they told me he's an atheist now. And his father was the best person. And I can continue. Anything you can imagine, I've seen it. I've seen the stories. So it doesn't matter if you have Iman. It doesn't matter if you're pious. It doesn't matter if you're a Sayyid anymore. No! If you don't raise your children in the right way, if you don't interact and know what's going on with their daily lives, wallahi, they will be lost. And that's why there's a few points that we have to focus on. Number one, the school. If you can put your children in an Islamic school, make sure you do so, brothers and sisters. Because who's going to teach them religion? If the public schools, they don't teach them religion, you don't have time, you're too busy trying to run your business, right? You're too busy, and now even the mothers work. And majalis, how many majalis do we have a year? Come on. I mean, after these majalis, usually it's once a week and nobody shows up. I went to the weekly programs, you have 20 people show up. Where are youth? Do they come to the programs? They don't. If they don't come to the majalis, they are not enrolled in Islamic schools. Where are they supposed to learn Islam? Where? I want to know how to pray salah. Where? Did I teach my child? I sat with him and I taught him everything? No. Did I teach him about his aqeedah, about Ahlul Bayt in detail? No. Did I teach them about all these things that give them immunity so that when someone comes and tells them, you know what, Christianity is a good religion, they don't flip? If you don't give them that knowledge and implant it, then obviously he'll go become an atheist, he'll go become a Christian, he'll go become so on and so forth. Because he doesn't have knowledge of himself and nobody's teaching him. So if you can put them in a full-time Islamic school like this one, Belfield College, do so. If not, at least the weekly schools, the madrasas, the Saturday, the Sunday school, so that they can learn about Islam. Wallahi, you'd be surprised. Sometimes I see some youth, they have good parents, but their children know nothing about Islam. I mentioned the story before. I went to a Majlis once, and the guy that invited me, the guy that ran the Husayniyah, the Majlis, the most pious guy, he ran the place. He used to fund it and run it. He was a very righteous guy. He had two young sons, one 17, one 19. One day they wanted to bring me, they wanted to bring me lunch. They wanted to take me to McDonald's. So I told them, you guys have a halal McDonald's here? They're like, yeah, it's not pork. It's like, I know it's not pork, but is it halal? And all of a sudden I saw the confusion. They had no idea what halal food was. And then I started to teach them about halal food. They had no idea how to pray. They had no idea what najasa tahara. You know, this is a problem in our communities. Our youth don't know najasa and tahara. You know how I find out? When I'm invited to people's houses, unfortunately I have to say this, I go to the restroom, you see all the urine on the seat. My son has to do that? Learn from the Westerners? Why don't we teach our kids these things? Who's going to teach them this? If I can't, I'm too busy, the mother's too busy, they don't show up in the lectures. Who's going to teach them najasa, tahara, halal, haram, what they're supposed to eat, what they're not supposed to eat? And of course, some of the more, intimate ahkam like ghusl and so on and so forth. Who's going to teach them these ahkam? If you don't put them in Islamic school, make programs for them that teach them these ahkam, 90% of our youth have no clue what ghusl janaba is. Who's going to teach them that? They have no clue how to purify najasa tahara. The laws of najasa tahara, they're not easy. You have to take courses to learn it. Do they know this? They don't. So this is very important, brothers and sisters, that we have to make sure there are classes, there are sessions that are teaching our children this. That's number one. Number two, a very important thing is these tablets, these smartphones and tablets. Make sure that you know what your children are doing behind your back. Now you see 6-year-old kids, they're just texting. Who are they texting? Who are they talking to? Before, if my son or daughter wanted to have an unlawful relationship, they would have to sneak out the door, out of the window, in the middle of the night, and it was risky, right? Some kids wouldn't do it, even though they wanted to. Now you don't have to sneak. Now you just sit in your room, and the entire world is in front of you. They can talk to anyone they want. They can have a relationship with anyone they want, and the father and mother are clueless. They have no idea what their son and daughter are doing in the rooms when they go and close the door, what they're seeing on this, who they're speaking to, what they're watching. So we have to be careful from these brothers and sisters. Yes, they're good, but they also have these concerns that we have to address. And number three, the third thing that we have to be careful if we want to raise good kids, who they befriend. Who are their friends? Because even if you did your job, you raised good kids, you created that Islamic environment, you took them to Islamic school, you brought them to the lectures, you taught them everything, they love Ahlul Bayt, so on and so forth. All it takes is one bad friend, peer pressure, and they will pull your child away. You know, many kids, when they start doing drugs, they don't want to do drugs in the beginning. No kid grows up and says, I want to do drugs. You know how it usually starts? Peer pressure. They have a bad friend. They go out one day. Hey, you know what? Try this. It's nice. You say no. Try it. No. Are you afraid? Try it. They pressure him until he takes one puff. But he takes that first hit. That's it. He's fallen into the trap. He takes a second, third one, and then he's addicted. So make sure who your friends are, who your children are befriending. Because friends, if they are good, they will be a positive factor in their life. And if they're bad, they'll take your children away. So these are very important points that we have to put in our minds. We have to be involved in the lives of our children. You see, tonight is the Shahada of the 8th Imam, Imam Al-Rida alayhi salam. And there's a beautiful hadith that shows you how Ahlul Bayt used to raise their kids. Yes, Ahlul Bayt were infallible. Yes, Allah used to guide them, but they still raised their children. They still had to go through the hard work of raising good children. You see, Al-Imam Al-Jawad, when he was 7 years old, there's a famous story. He had a debate with the biggest scholar of his time, Yahya ibn Aktham. He was an old man that everybody respected. He was the state scholar that the state sponsored, and he was the mufti of the kingdom. Imam Jawad was 7 years old. He had a debate with him and he defeated him. It's a long story. And he made him look like a fool. How was Imam Jawad able to do that when he was 7? Well, people say he was an imam. No, it wasn't just because he was an imam, because he was raised to be ready for imamah even at that young age, 7. Now our kids are 17 and they're still little babies. They're still little kids. They don't know what to do. They don't even know how to talk. They're 20 and they don't know how to talk. Imam Jawad at age 7? How? Listen to the story. The hadith says that when Imam Rida alayhi salam was taken to Khurasan, he was the crown prince. He was, the Ma'mun forced him to become the crown prince of the Abbasid dynasty. So, Imam al-Rida, he was in Khurasan, present day Mashhad. Imam Jawad was in Medina. Now, how many miles or kilometers between these two cities? Almost 3,000 kilometers. Especially back then, 3,000 kilometers meant you have to travel for a month until you can, come from one city to the other. The hadith says that one day, Imam al-Rida sends a letter to his son. His son is either 6 or 7 years old in Medina. Why does he send him a letter? He sends him a letter telling him that I have heard certain reports about you, about his son. You see how he tries to teach him, discipline him. He would monitor his son. Even though he's in Khurasan, but he would always receive news about his son and he would monitor him, make sure that he's raising his son in the right way. He says, I heard news, بلغني أن الموالي. I'll read you the hadith. بلغني أن الموالي إذا ركبت أدخلوك من الباب الصغير فأسألك بحقي عليك أن لا يكن مدخلك ومخرجك إلا من الباب الكبير واصحب معك شيئا من الذهب والفضة وأنفق على الناس فإن الله يرفعك. So the Imam tells him in this hadith, he tells him that I heard, there are certain reports, that when you are leaving the house that you're in, you're leaving from the back door. Please don't leave from the back door, leave from the front door. Now what is the Imam talking about? Imam Al-Jawad, he's the son of the crown prince, right? So obviously he's going to get special treatment by the government because his father is the crown prince. So he had many, guards, many servants. So the Imam is young, he sits on a wagon or something, and he would have servants that would, push him out of the house. So the servants, instead of taking him out of the front door, they would always take him out from the back door. Why? Because there would be so many people that had gathered in front of the front door that wanted to see Imam Al-Jawad. They just wanted to be blessed with him. Some had questions. Others wanted money. They believed in Imam Jawad. Even though he was young, they loved him. So his house, in front of his house, sometimes you go to visit one of the Maraja, you see so many people have lined up in front of his house. Some have questions, some want money, some this, some that. This is how Imam Jawad was, even at that young age. So the servants, because they didn't want Imam Jawad to be bothered with all these people, they would sneak him out of the back door when they wanted to take him out. That's it. Is this wrong? Has Imam Jawad done anything wrong? No. And it wasn't even his choice. It was the servants. Because remember, when you are the son of the crown prince, you have all the security guards and the government makes the decisions for you. Especially when you're a child, 6, 7 years old. And Imam al-Rida sends a letter from 3,000 kilometers. He's still involved with his son's life. He's still monitoring. Allahu Akbar. He tells him, my dear son, I am hearing that you're leaving from the back door. Please, I ask you if you love me. And he speaks with him in a beautiful tone. Not a condescending tone where he disrespects him. No, in a beautiful tone. He tells him, my dear son, when you leave the house, leave from the front door. Because we Ahlul Bayt, the reason why people love us is because we're down to earth. We always help people. We don't run away from people. Some people, they just run away. Ahlul Bayt, they would go and they would answer the hajat of others. So anytime you leave, go out. When people ask you questions, answer them. Take money with you. The Imam, the father, instructs his son. He tells him, take money with you. And when you see people, give them money. Give them. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate your status when you do that. When you're down to earth, the more you humble yourself, the more Allah elevates you. So he tells him how to deal with the people. Allahu Akbar, he's thousands of kilometers away, but yet even something as trivial as this, leave from the front door or the back door, and even though Imam Jawad was doing nothing wrong, but Imam al-Rida wanted to make sure that he raised his son the right way. Would you be surprised that Imam Jawad, when he's 7, he was able to debate Yahya ibn Aktham and destroy him? Because Imam Rida raised him to be so great. They were involved in their everyday lives, even if they were away. So Imam Rida is 3,000 kilometers away, yet he knows what his son is doing on a daily basis and he teaches him, but in a beautiful way. And some of us, we live with our kids under one roof. They are in one world, we're in a different world. We have no idea what our kids do, what they tweet, which apps they have on their phone, on their iPads, who their friends are, how they spend their time. We don't even know. There's a barrier now. There's a barrier you find between the first generation and the second generation. Because the first generation, they're raised in the East, and our kids are raised here. They don't even connect anymore. The son and the father don't even talk anymore. They don't have a friendship. When that happens, my dear brothers and sisters, be prepared, be alarmed. Because your child may be lost. And you'll realize that your child is not who you thought. He's living a completely different life. So learn from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and how they used to be so involved in their children's lives. Or else if I continue telling the stories, brothers and sisters, I know many people, they think, you know what, not my daughter, not my son, even your son, even your daughter. I'll tell you, even my son and my daughter, if you're not vigilant and you raise them, full-time job, every day you're on their back, you are monitoring them, you're teaching them, you create that Islamic environment in the house. When it's salah time, everyone prays. Teach them why they should pray versus forcing them to pray. Teach your girl why she should wear hijab versus forcing her to wear hijab. If you don't create that Islamic atmosphere, they won't love religion. They'll find religion as a burden. They'll run away. Once they turn 18, khalas, you never find them in the Majlis. Because they never understood the religion. And that's why I said we have to teach them. The more knowledge they have, the more they will be in love with Islam. Most of our kids know nothing about Islam. Nothing. It's just the exterior. It's just a few recitations that they have memorized and they don't know what they're saying because they don't understand the du'as. For example, Allahumma kulli waliyika. It's just something they say. They don't even know what they're saying. Other du'as that they learn, other prayers, they don't even know what they're saying. There is no relationship that they build because they don't understand. It's just recitations that are meaningless to them and they don't have that knowledge. This is what alienates them. So we have to teach them and we have to create that environment, my friends. And we learn from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And the greatest example, as I mentioned, is Imam al-Rida. And tonight is the Shahada of Imam al-Rida, according to some hadiths. Tonight is the Shahada, the 17th of Safar, was when Imam al-Rida was poisoned to death by Al-Ma'mun. Now, as I mentioned, Al-Ma'mun, he brought Imam al-Rida to the city of Khurasan because he wanted to use the name of Imam al-Rida to give himself credibility that even al-Rida is with me in my government. But eventually what started to happen was Imam Rida began to overshadow Ma'mun. Who's Ma'mun? When people see the knowledge of al-Rida, they forget about Ma'mun. But Ma'mun is the Khalifa and Imam Rida is the Crown Prince. But Imam Rida was getting all of the spotlight because he had the knowledge, he had the wisdom, he had the piety, he had the nur radiating from his head, from his face. So Ma'mun began to feel insecure. Wait a minute, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. People are all loving Imam Rida, nobody wants me anymore. Because they saw the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt. They saw the pure teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. So he began to feel uneasy, insecure, until one day he said, you know what, I can no longer tolerate the 8th Imam. And he decided to remove him, and he decided to kill him. The hadith says that one day, he summoned the Imam to his palace. The Imam came, and he had, some hadiths say that he had taken certain grapes, and he had poisoned those grapes because he wanted to kill the Imam. Get rid of him because he is stealing all the spotlight. And other hadiths say that it was pomegranate juice. Either way, he put some poison in food, and he placed it in front of the Imam, and he told the Imam, you have to drink this, or you have to eat this. The Imam took from that, he ate those grapes, or he drank that juice, and it was a very strong type of poison. As soon as the Imam took that poison, he took that food, the poison instantly, it began to give him pain. So the Imam, right away he knew what he had done. So he got up to leave. Ma'mun told him, where are you going? He told him, I know what you have done. I'm gonna die. You have killed me. So the Imam, he left. But the hadith says the Imam could hardly even walk because of the pain that he felt from the poison. He wanted to leave the palace and go to his home, but he was wobbling. He was about to fall. Until he reached his home, he fell. Abu Salt, one of the companions of Imam Al-Rida, he came, he saw the Imam is on the floor. He told him, what happened, Sayyidi O Mawlai? What happened to you? Why are you on the floor? He told him, it is the Ma'mun. He gave me poison and it won't be long before I will die. Abu Salt, he says, I saw the Imam was in so much pain that he would stand up and sit. Because when when there's severe pain, you don't know what to do. There's no painkillers. He would just stand up and sit. He said, I counted the Imam 50 times. He would stand up and sit. Stand up from the pain. Allahu Akbar. Because the poison was destroying the Imam. The hadith says that Imam Al-Rida remained in this condition, in this pain for 2 days. In those final hours, Abu Sa'id says it was only me and Imam Al-Rida. No one else in the house. All the doors were locked. I saw Imam Al-Rida. It's his final moment. He's about to die. He's about to depart this world. All of a sudden, I look, I see a young boy. He had arrived. That young boy was hiding his face. I told him, who are you? How did you come in here? I locked all the doors. He uncovered his face. It was an Imam Al-Jawad. He told him, I am the son of an Imam Al-Rida. He told him, how did you come in here? I locked the doors. He told him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought me through a miracle from Medina. He brought me to the city of Khurasan. Imam Al-Jawad, he's only 7 years old. He sits by his father. He sees his father, Imam Al-Rida, is in pain. He puts the head of Imam Al-Rida in his lap. The Imam gives him his final wishes, his final wasaya wills, and then he tells him, I'm thirsty. The son, Imam Al-Jawad, he gives his father some water. Imam Al-Rida, alayhi salam, he passes away while his head is in the lap of Imam Al-Jawad, his son. Yes, the hadith tells us that anytime an Imam dies, another Imam has to bury him. This reminds us of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, how he left Kufa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took him out through a miracle from Kufa, and he brought him on the 13th day of Muharram. 3 days the body of Hussein was laying without any cover. And Imam Al-Rida, in those final moments, he had his son beside him. He asked for water, but in the final moments of Imam Hussein's life, he had no one in front of him. He had no one besides him from his family. Instead, he found Shimr. He came and he kicked the Imam on his head. Allahu Akbar. This was so difficult on Imam Zainul Abidin that he had to know when his father died, he could not be there with him. So he came to bury him 3 days after. The tribe of Bani Asad, reports tell us that they used to live outside close to Karbala. They came 3 days after the battle of Karbala to bury the body of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They wanted to bury the body of Hussein, but they couldn't. You know why? Because how could they know which body was Imam Hussein's body? There was no head. The head of Imam Hussein was on a spear in Kufa. How could they know which one was the body of Hussein? Which one is the body of Abbas? Which one is the body of Akbar? They didn't know what to do. All of a sudden they saw a man coming. They saw he's coming from the north. They thought it was one of the enemies, but all of a sudden when he came, they saw it is Al-Imam Zayn Al-Abidin alayhi salam. But they say that when the Imam arrived, he came and he was looking for a specific body. He was looking for the body of Abu Abdullah Al-Hussein. And the body of Imam had no head. But you know how Imam Zayn Al-Abidin found the body of his father? Because the body of his Hussein was the body that had the most arrows, was the body that had the most injuries. And Imam Al-Sadiq says that my grandfather Hussein's body on Ashura was like of a hedgehog, meaning it was filled with arrows and spears. So he was looking for the body that had the most injuries and arrows. They say when he arrived to the body of Hussein, he didn't come down from his horse. He threw himself from the horse on the body of Hussein, and he started to cry out, Abata, Ya Hussein. My dear father Hussein, what did they do to you? They left you for 3 days without burying you. أيوا شهيدا أيوا مظلوما يا. And then the Imam, he dug a grave for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He wanted, Bani Asad wanted to help the Imam so that they can bury Imam Hussein. He told them, no, as for my father Hussein, I have to bury him by myself. He took the body of his father, Abu Abdullah. He went into the grave. Bani Asad, they were standing and waiting. They noticed that Imam Zayn Al-Abidin is taking too long. What's going on? So they came, they overlooked. They saw Imam Zayn Al-Abidin. He had placed his lips on the neck of Imam Hussein. And he was saying, my dear father, they killed you thirsty. My dear father, they cut off your head. Aywa Husayna. Now there is a sunnah. The ahadith tell us that it is a custom that when we bury our dead, it is mustahab that we uncover the cheek and we place the cheek on the sand of the grave. Imam Zayn Al-Abidin wanted to do the sunnah, but he saw that there is no cheek, there is no head. How can he do his sunnah, the sunnah for his father Hussein, when there is no head? And then he told his father, Abataya, amma dunya fa ba'daka mudlima. وَأَمَّا الْآخِرَةُ فَبِنُورِ وَجْهِكَ مُشْرِقًا. He told him, my dear father Hussein, this dunya is so dark after you. Hey, my dear father Hussein, أَمَّا حُزْنِي فَسَرْمَدُوا وَأَمَّا لَيْلِي فَمُسَهَّدُ. My dear father Hussein, how can I ever sleep after seeing your beheaded body? I will forever be in grief and mourn you, my dear father Hussein. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Brothers and sisters, let us raise our hand and supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him to answer our hajat. Let us ask Him to forgive us of our sins, to accept our a'mal, to hasten the reappearance of the 12th Imam. Everyone together, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات نهدي ثواب الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
Inshallah, brothers and sisters, we conclude the program here, and you can join the program upstairs for Masaib and Matandari. As-salawat bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.